Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. Well, welcome to Gun Talk. I'm Tom Gresham, your host. We have an awful lot of things we're going to be talking about today. I'm glad that you could be with us. If you're new here, let me explain. It's called Gun Talk. We talk about all things related to guns and shooting. It could be hunting, certainly. It can be competition shooting. We'll talk about personal safety, your security, and of course, we'll talk about the Second Amendment. The only thing we don't do is to talk about doing things that are reckless with guns. We're the good guys and gals, which means we're the ones you don't hear much about in the media. Okay, I had a whole bunch of other things planned for today, and we blew it up about an hour ago. I just said, yeah, yank all that stuff. We're going in a different direction. Because things are breaking. News is breaking. I don't assume that everybody is a news junkie the way I am. I've always been a news junkie. Going through journalism school, J school, made me even more so. And so I follow the news. In case you have not, in case you haven't looked at the news in the last 24 hours, Israel was attacked. The country of Israel was attacked by terrorists. They have killed at least 600 people, probably more than that. Even more than that, we're seeing the videos of the Hamas terrorists kidnapping people. I mean, they were kicking in doors and shooting people. They invaded them sea, land, and air. They came in with powered parachutes, of all things. And then you have hundreds of these attackers going through the streets, killing people, went to a music festival, and then kidnapped a whole bunch of people from like ages 2 to 80, kidnapped them to take them back to hold them as human hostages. In the process, they were raping young girls and, of course, then torturing them and beating them and dragging them off. This is not supposition. This is not hearsay. This is actually watching the videos. If you've been looking at all of this, you know what I'm talking about. So why am I talking about that here on Gun Talk? Because we're going to use this as an object lesson for you to either learn or relearn things you should have known before when it comes to your personal security systems. Now, I'll get into that. You're just going to hang with me here, and this will start to make some sense. And, why does an attack on Israel have anything to do with you in your hometown? Well, it does. Because it gives you yet another chance to look at the world without your rose-colored glasses. Chances are, look, I get it. Chances are, if you are listening to Gun Talk, you actually are aware, more so than a lot of people. You're aware of the vulnerabilities that come just from living life, not because of anything you particularly have done. You also are aware that, for the most part, you are on your own. We are on our own. No one's coming to help you. I mean, if they do, they'll get there late. They're not going to be there to stop the attack. So, how do we equate that with what happened and is happening right now in Israel? Well, here's the deal. Here's your scenario for you. That we're going to do some imagination exercises here. And you know how I've often said, people, and you'll hear them, even today, probably on the news, people say, well, we could never have imagined. No one could ever have imagined. People say, well, I can never imagine needing a gun for self-defense. And I always say, you just need a better imagination. Because there are all sorts of scenarios that you can imagine, not like conjuring up out of thin air, but just because you have a memory, for heaven's sakes, of what has happened, what has always happened, what continues to happen, and what will always happen. Bad people will try to kill you and torture you and rape you and kidnap you. And they will come in 1s and 2s and 6s and 12s. You don't know what the threat's going to look like. You have choices to make. I think there are right and wrong choices, but you may disagree with that. I think it's wrong to say, I'm just not going to do anything about it. I'm going to pretend that this does not exist because, and this is what happens a lot, because it makes me feel bad to think about this. Seriously, there are people who won't take action to protect themselves and their families because they don't like how it makes them feel to think that they are vulnerable, to think that they are exposed, to think that there are really bad people out there who really and truly, with absolutely no reason whatsoever, will hurt them, will kill them, will rape them, will kidnap them, and their children, and their grandchildren, and their grandparents. So what's your takeaway? Well, I would offer, I hope, that you would look at this realistically and say this stuff happens. It doesn't just happen in other countries, doesn't just happen in Israel, it happens in Detroit, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in Dallas, in Waco. It happens everywhere. There are bad people everywhere. Crazy pops up when you least expect it. And just because somebody's crazy doesn't mean they're not dangerous. They may be worthy of compassion, but they can still kill you. So, and look, let's talk reasonably here, rationally, realistically. If you have 1,000 people going around kicking in doors, you're not going to stop 1,000 people. But let's start with this assumption. They are there to kill you. You're not going to survive this. Once you accept it, you're not going to survive this, or at least there is a decent chance you won't survive this, then you can take action based on that reality. What would that action be? Do I want to die on my knees? Do I want to get dragged off to be tortured? Do I want my granddaughter or my daughter to be raped in front of me while they kill my grandparents in front of me? Or am I going to take some kind of positive affirmative action that might have some impact? If I take out one or two of these guys before they kill me, that may not have a huge impact. But if 1,000 of us does that, if 10,000 of us each says, I'm going to take one of them out with me before they get me, we just made a major impact. Yeah, I know it's all theoretical. And yeah, it's a hard thing to think about. And yeah, it makes me sound like some kind of weird conspiracy theorist and all the rest of that. But here's the deal. This is not some fantasy. This is not some reactionary dreamscape of I'm going to be against the world. No, this is happening as we're speaking. They're kicking in doors. They're dragging off people. They're raping. I'm talking about young women, girls, young girls. Right now. So here's your scenario. Here's your thought exercise for you. People are beating on your door. They're kicking in your door. How? Number one, do you own an AR-15? I mean, certainly you probably own a pistol, but do you own an AR-15? Is it where you can get to it quickly? How many magazines do you own for your AR-15? How many of those magazines are currently loaded? Because you might need multiple magazines. And boy, talk about if there was ever an argument to be made for the 30-round magazine, this is it. We got video of dozens of these marauders, these terrorists, walking around the streets. Video taken from high elevation. Boy, you know what? If you got a high elevation, you got a rifle and you know how to use it, you can exact some impact on some people. Food for thought. Mental exercises. The whole, I never thought of that. Here's an alert for you. If you haven't been out to the range in the last month, your skills are deteriorating. Now, I'm talking about using your self-defense pistol, your self-defense rifle, your self-defense shotgun, whatever it is you say you have for self-defense. If you haven't fired it in the last month, you don't have the skills quite yet where they need to be. And if you're not getting training, regular training, going to classes about this, I don't know, call it once a year just to pick a number, then you don't have the skills that you are going to want desperately if you ever needed them. I don't know. I'm curious to what your reaction is, what your reaction was when you saw this. Was it just one of those, oh, it's happening in another part of the world, and oh, look, those, old antagonists are going at each other? Or do you personalize it? Do you individualize it? Do you internalize it? Do you think, oh, wow, what would I do in that situation? Because once you get to that point in your thinking, where you think, I'm going to use this as a learning experience, now you're making some progress. What was your reaction? Our number here is 866-TALK-GUN or Tom Talk Gun. I'm Tom Gresham. This is Gun Talk.